Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you with us for our third event in AIT's July Speaker Series. I'm Tamara Popper, AIT's Industry Liaison. I'll be the facilitator for tonight's industry panel discussion. But before I introduce our special guests, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm presenting on the land of the Gadigal and Birrabirragal people, the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge First Nations people who are with us tonight. Welcome. So firstly, everybody, thank you for joining us. We've got a great lineup of industry talent tonight who are going to tell us about their career journeys, as well as share their knowledge about jobs and roles in their sectors. And they're going to give us some great advice and tips for getting started in the industries that you may be interested in having a career in. So they'll be an inspiration to you all for sure. So just a little bit of housekeeping for you all in the audience. We'll have a Q&A session after the panel discussion that starts around about 6:45. So we've got Donna, Head of Domestic Student Enrolment. She's in the chat room with you, and there she is. Hey, Donna. So please write your questions in the chat, which you all have access to, and we'll get around to sort of asking the panelists those and answering them. Make sure you write the questions in the little To Everyone panel. And then from 7 p.m, we have Charlotte, one of our lovely course advisors. She's going to put her screen on. Hey, Charlotte. And yeah, she's going to provide you with information about AIT's bachelor programs across 2D, 3D, games and films. So stick around for that as well. That's at 7 o'clock. So let's introduce tonight's guests who are from the areas of 2D animation, film and video, VFX and games. So welcome guests. We have April Howard from Rollingball Productions. Hey, April. Pop your
Hi everyone.
Yay.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Okay.
Hi, Bilal Akil from Wargaming.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. And Mark Miller, you've done one of these before. Good to see you again.
Hey, hello everyone.
And welcome Brian Zhu, long-time standing friend, AIT. He's been to many game events and taken part in panels before. Welcome everyone.
Hi everyone.
So your proper introductions are coming with your very impressive bios later, but we're going to start firstly introducing April Howard, who is a film producer and founder and CEO of Rollingball Productions. So Rollingball work with clients in Australia and Asia, and the team produces social impact campaigns, TV advertising, branded content and TV documentaries. Now, April began her career as a young TV actor in the 90s and then went on to journalism. And it was via these careers that she found her passion for film and co-founded Rollingball, and is now an in-house and independent film producer. She's also currently studying a Masters of Art Screen Business and Masters of Documentary at AFTRS. That's the National Film School. April, you are one busy woman. Welcome.
Thank you. When you read it like that, it does sound like I'm busy, but anyway, I don't do it all at one time.
You juggle. Yep. That's what you do in the creative industries.
Exactly.
Listen, I think our audience would love to know where you were at when you finished up at high school and what led you to your current career.
Okay, so yeah, you've touched on the fact I did do some screen work earlier on, and that was in a role of acting, but to be honest, I did do it for about 4 years, and I realized that wasn't my passion. I preferred to be behind the camera and in constructing the narratives versus the performance. So that led me to choose a pathway out of high school into university of studying journalism, and to then work mainly in television for a number of years before going over to the dark side into the agency land, realizing that wasn't for me, but certainly picking up some really good experience in managing projects, budgets, and those kinds of things. And I mention that because when it comes to the screen industry, you know, it's such a wide market, and there's a place for so many different skill sets. And I would encourage anyone to never say no to an opportunity, because it'll always craft something as a next step or somewhere else that you can go and grow. So after the agency experience, that was enough for me to then found Rollingball. And the reason I did that was because I just am very, very passionate about work that puts a voice into the voiceless or social impact space. So I thought my best chance of doing that was to basically commission the work as best I can on my own. The reality of that is that, you still need finance, revenue streams and the like. So, there's always a commercial aspect to what we do, but generally there's always that underpinning social impact space if it can be. I did want to just also mention, given that, there's a room full of amazing emerging students or emerging students online, is that I've gone back to study in my early 40s due to the downturn, due to the challenges that, we've all been navigating. And, it's never too late, I don't think, to pivot a little bit within the screen industry and find out, what else you haven't learned, or to finesse your skills. And today at Afters, I was at an industry session, and they were talking about the gaming industry. Now, that's not something I've had a lot of experience with, but it's clear that that's a massive emerging market. So I don't know if there's anyone in the group that wants to consider focusing in that space, but I can say that there's a massive skill shortage from my understanding, and there's a huge amount of amazing potential about driving narrative in that kind of world. And it is foreign to me, but I think in the end of the day, if you can produce in the live action, you should be able to maybe apply it to the gaming space. So that might be something I'll look into further. But I think in general for myself, screens probably, it's my home. It's where it's always been one of the consistent things in my life, and it's a place to escape to, and it's a place to do impactful storytelling. So I think that's sort of what I've found out about myself, particularly going back to study now rather than, not. So if anyone's looking at any kind of extension in their study realm, I'd encourage them hugely to do so. And the only other thing I'd say is knocking on any door from an industry point of view, that, a lot of the people who will be opening that door have been in your seat, and I'm one of them. And, people take on internships or work experience, or, a really basic runner role. People who are keen, people are receptive to that. So I would also encourage people never to be afraid of at least asking the question if they can find a place to even volunteer their time.
That's lovely, April, that idea of mentorship, somebody with experience in the industry, bringing up the next generation of talent. And, a lot of our audience tonight, that's what they are. They're emerging talent, and they're going to want and need that little leg up in the industry. So thank you for telling us about where you've come from. It's just excellent. We'll touch on more of those points later, April. Next up, I'd like to introduce Bilal Akil from Wargaming and the indie games studio Doodad. Hiya. So just a little bit about Bilal. He's a senior software engineering at Wargaming Sydney, where he works on secret game services for World of Tanks and other unannounced titles. So that's all top secret, right, Bilal? He's also an indie game developer with Doodad Games, wearing many hats and having released several games on a number of platforms, specialising in tower defences, and with a growing interest in kids' games to accompany his little growing human, which is his son. I thought it may be one of his games, but hey, kids and games, they go together, right, Bilal?
Yep.
Hey, we'd love to hear about your backstory, what led you to pursuing a career in games.
Yeah, cool. It was a kind of roundabout one. I wouldn't say it's the standard story. Well, the beginning might be. When I was a little one, I found myself dabbling with different forms of game dev. Probably when I was under 10, I used to try to draw like kind of Super Mario platformer levels on paper and stick pages together. But when I was at the age of 10, I found myself playing a game called Warcraft 3. And that game, I learned at that time that game was like an engine. It wasn't just a game on its own. It could load a thing called a map, and that's what you play. And I thought, someone makes those maps. Does that mean I can make those maps? And I just kind of started looking into that for some reason. I was just driven in that direction. 3 years later, I started still through that game engine, Warcraft 3, I started learning about programming at its most basic forms. And that's when it kind of went half-half. I really liked making games, but I started to get kind of obsessed just with the art of programming. And I would learn to code, and I'm like, oh my God, I've got so much power at my hands. And so as I was coming out of high school, it was I found myself more focused just on kind of pure programming than actual game development, even though that's what got me started on that journey. So I went into uni just with computer science and just wanted to soak up as much programming experience as I could. And I found that I kind of forgot about games. It just kind of faded off into the distance until a few years later, I finished my bachelor. I was working as just a regular programmer. And it was like, these jobs, they're just not ticking my boxes. It's just, I felt like I was kind of flipping digital hamburgers, so to speak, making websites and apps, and like, it wasn't very motivating or exciting. And that's when I thought, hang on a sec, when I was back at school, I used to love making games. Why did I stop doing that? And so I kind of went full circle a few years later. And at that point, because I was pretty good as a programmer, it wasn't too hard to shift kind of horizontally into the video game industry. And
well, exactly, Bilal. It's about transferable skills, isn't it? Programmers are working in all sectors now, not just the screen industry games, but obviously across so many sectors. So it's a great point you make.
Yeah, for sure. If you can be like an actually really good programmer and you have confidence that you are, then it kind of, the world kind of becomes your oyster, and you can kind of chase your passion wherever it goes, because every company pretty much needs a programmer for something. So I guess, although it was a kind of long-winded route back into the game industry, I don't regret that that segue, or maybe because it gave me a very useful skill that can help me kind of go wherever I want in the future.
It's interesting, like April, passion started at an early age. She started, in screen at a young age. She ended up on the other side of the camera, but, our passions are long-standing. They do go back to when you're young. So maybe for our audience, they can think back, what was it that I loved doing when I was 4, 5, 10, 11, whatever? It's a great place to start, right?
Yep, I think that's where the real lasting memories are.
Exactly, for sure. Thanks, Bilal. Well, we'll kind of get to Mark Miller with that as well. Just a little bit about Mark, who is the Business Development Manager for Alt.VFX. And they are a world-leading visual effects and post-production company with studios in Australia, Los Angeles and Tokyo. So prior to Alt.VFX, Mark worked with Animal Logic, who are the creators of Peter Rabbit, Lego Batman and Avengers Age of Ultron, and of course many more. Mark has been key in Alt's move into film, television and streaming, working on projects such as the recently Oscar-nominated feature film The Power of the Dog, and Australian films such as Little Monsters and Penguin Bloom. Other Alt projects are 9 Perfect Strangers and the current Netflix series Pieces of Her. So Mark is also leading Alt's emerging technology business, which is big at the moment, right, Mark? Creating amazing work in the AR, VR and real-time interactive spaces. Welcome, Mark. Can you tell us what were your creative inspirations that led you to the VFX industry and your current role today?
I guess the interest in general storytelling is very similar to the pathway that April was talking about, and that we were both journalists for a long time, and that for me was never about, and a little bit of a contrast to April as well, it was never about like uncovering the truth or things like that. For me, it was always about telling stories and doing features and doing interviews and getting to talk to the people who made music that I loved or made films that I loved. And I suddenly had an accessibility to an industry that seemed so closed off to me. But then after moving from journalism into marketing and PR, I did that for a few years and literally lucked into a job in the film industry here in Australia when I applied for a job doing marketing for Animal Logic, not knowing a thing about Animal Logic at that point, and somehow managed to, I guess it's the gift of the gab, somehow managed to talk my way into that job. And I guess from there, for me, it was like suddenly seeing behind the curtain. You know, you see the work that's put in and the different stages of any sort of creative work, especially filmmaking or animation at that time. It was just going around all of the different departments and seeing what they all do. And what's that you're up to? Like, show me that. That's cool. Like, you know, like just being super, super interested in it. And then when I came to Alt.VFX, for a long time, the company only ever did commercials and did very well at them. Still do a lot of commercials, but having spent that time at Animal Logic, it gave me a really good grounding in the opportunities for the film industry work that was happening in Australia, both the overseas work that was coming over here and the Australian client base. So it took me a couple of years.
Talk about that, your background in writing journalism and making up stories. The creative space and the creative industries are very open and receptive, really, to people that have come from different areas. They love experience from other sectors. So
yeah, I agree. I guess it's just highlighting that there's no one way to get somewhere, especially in this kind of creative industry. Like, people come from all different side roads and side doors and suddenly find themselves, oh, I'm doing this now. I mean, it's great to have like goals of thinking about where you want to go in the future, but ultimately you will go down those side roads too and discover yourself doing things that you didn't really dream of 5 years, 10 years before.
Hey, we'll talk a little bit later about the incredible amount of VFX work in Australia at the moment. I think our audience will be really interested in that. Thanks for sharing what your trajectory was. Really interesting.
No worries.
Thanks. Next, we'll introduce Brian Zhu, who's a 2D animator and artist and founder and CEO of Sweaty Chair, which is a game studio. So Sweaty Chair brings awesome creative games to the world, elevating the fun of games to the next level. I think Bilal would appreciate that as well. The team come from various and diverse specialised backgrounds, including web development, game design, and digital art. So formerly, Brian was a technical director on Animal Logic's Happy Feet 2. And since 2015, he's been creating ideas for games and leading teams who produce them. So, hi, Brian. Thanks for being here.
Hi.
Hello. Could you describe the arc of your career journey from an early emerging talent working on George Miller's Happy Feet to where you are today, founder and CEO of Australia's leading game studios, Sweaty Chair and Block 42?
Okay. Yeah. So it start with university. Yeah. So I was doing computer engineering degree back in the university stage, and I absolutely hated it. And I changed my degree to digital media combined with computer science, which is like half VFX, half programming. And then that's when I find where my passion lies in. I could work with 3D animations, 2D animations, and a lot of programming. It was very unique combined set of skills that like normally people who do arts don't do coding, and a lot of people do coding who don't do arts. And I just happen to kind of understand a bit of both. and it put me in a situation that it's quite easy to find a job. And then on my graduation work, I actually quite lucky. My uni product was making a short animation film, and it actually was showing up on Channel 10 and ABC as a very short 3D film. That landed me my first job in, it's not Animology, it's actually Dr. D Studio, who is producing the Happy Feet 2. I got in it as a technical director, as a technical assistant, later promoted to technical director, which is still pretty cool. First time seeing my names on credit, it was amazing experience. It's almost like a dream come true for me when I landed this job. It's like, you know, working in the Hollywood film, it's not something you can do every day. And it was fun. Oh, yeah, it was quite a lot of hard work, to be honest. The film that I produced, like, I used 9 months in my university to produce a 3-minute animation. It's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, it was still pretty amazing product at the end. And then after working in Happy Feet 2, I did a little bit job working in the United States for a startup for VR company. And then I come back to Australia, decided to finally start my company working on some games. And that's, I think, how I moved from animation to gaming. Actually, the biggest reason for me to move from animation to gaming is Dr. D Studio shut down because they don't have money after making that movie. And I run out of job, and it's fortunate that the gaming industry was booming, and I got investment to start my own company. And that's how it was. How did I start it? Challenge I faced when working on Happy Feet 2. It was actually
lots of challenges there, Brian.
There is a lot. We work 13 hours a day, 7 days a week, non-stop to push out the movie because it was so far behind schedule. And how many people on my team? Okay, so the animation team has 100 to 150 people. I'm not too sure. It divided into 7 smaller teams. Each smaller team has like 10 people. I'm one of the smaller teams. And then the whole company working on this movie has 750 people at the peak time. So there's animation department, rendering, texturing, all those VFX. Mark Miller will know a lot more than I do now. And yeah, it was exciting. The one I worked with and sit next to like ended up winning some Academy Award, and someone next to me made the best game last year, like the what's that one? The Returnal. Like all those people in that group ended up pretty exciting job. Someone that started doing directing in Animal Logic now. I think doing this kind of degree, this like animation degree, is really lead you to do a lot of things that you're really passionate in. And yeah, I'm happy I'm where I am now.
Hey, Brian, you're a perfect example really of somebody who's kind of got good, like very strong skills, obviously in technical, 2D, digital art, etc., plus programming. You combine them both, and because you've got a great understanding of both, that makes you a great team leader, CEO, founder.
In theory, it's supposed to be, but in fact, if you know everything, you're probably not a good leader. It will probably learn less and rely on your team. Probably could deliver a better product. I learned this the hard way, but I'm coming closer to it.
Well, can I ask you now, Brian, just about career opportunities in animation, and are there opportunities across all aspects of animation currently?
Currently, I think gaming industry is totally booming. Australia government is totally supporting it. There's a lot of funding to like, regardless of starting a new project. And due to COVID, I think the gaming industry in general is just booming. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Mark,
So-
could you speak to that as well from a VFX point of view?
I guess it's exactly the same and very, very similar. I think the skill sets, I guess Brian's career trajectory outlines that. The skill sets between VFX and gaming are quite interchangeable. There's a lot of kind of very similar skill sets and a lot of similar softwares too. But in VFX, there's just not too much work and not enough people to do it. And I think it's partly brought on by COVID, but also partly brought on by the kind of explosion in content in different streaming channels who are basically screaming out for new content, and all of that requires visual effects. And it's not just a problem in Australia, it's a problem globally. And if you have, I mean, if you're at university now studying visual effects, then you have a good opportunity to travel out with these shores, that being a part of the problem. I guess there's a general brain drain of people who are qualified and want to go to London or Vancouver or somewhere else and live for a while and work. There's a lot of people doing that.
There is, Mark, one of our students, one of our wonderful students who graduated in VFX is now working for Frame Store in London. Frame Store have now just taken over Method Studios, who are based in Melbourne. But wow, we're losing some great emerging and senior talent to overseas. So the emerging talent, young people who are thinking about studying VFX, games, etc., and areas of filmmaking, the opportunities in the next few years are really huge. Just in the last 5 years, the change has been noticeably different, wouldn't you say, guys, across the board?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's just much harder. It's much harder to find people, and when you do find them, the money that you have to pay to secure them is much higher.
What do you all think are the qualities that emerging talent need? Even young talent who are wanting to go to uni. What is it that they need to do to achieve their goals? Any of you can answer that one.
I think April, who's currently doing 2 masters at the same time, should answer that one.
Thank you for that segue. I think there's 2 trains of thought. It could be that you approach it with the view that you've got many sort of skills on the table, and you can throw your hand at anything, and you can maybe dabble in a bit of gaming, or you can shoot and edit or write, and then let yourself find your place by not pigeonholing yourself too soon. Or when we know that there's sort of some big gaps emerging in the industry that globally can't be filled, that you just go a fairly straight line and say, and particularly like we spoke about earlier, what makes you happy, what lights you up, what's fun. You know, if you can find that and apply it in your day to day, the best thing about our industry is generally you're going to be working with pretty awesome people. Most of the people in this sort of industry, like while it's a one pointy end of it, a very glamorous industry, there's so many people, like the people in this room, that are behind the scenes getting it done. And most of those people roll up their sleeves and just have a laugh and are just super creative and amazing in their own right. So it could go to, as I say, either way, but I'm personally leaning on the fact that just with these gaps, I wonder whether people could really position themselves now and see if they like it. And if they do, stay with it.
Having a great attitude, April, I think is, be a really good collaborator, be a reliable team player, and just hone your craft every day. Whether you're a programmer or a VFX artist or a 2D animator, work Work on your passion projects every day, even while you're at uni, even while you're at high school. You know, this is the start of your career. Every day is the start of your career, and who you meet and collaborate with is where your future lies.
And trusting your intuition on things, and knowing that, you know, the opportunities are literally around every corner. Like, obviously we're all in still quite a strange time, but look at what's happening globally because of the technology, and the fact that we've all had to sort of go up against some really challenging circumstances that have cracked open the way we even work. And look, a lot of us, obviously, multiple screens in every household, desperate need for good content. And therefore all, you know, roles within the industry are opening up, I think. And like, even we were speaking about this, Tamara and I, recently, there's a lack of even directors. And directors aren't necessarily the same profile as they used to be. There's more females coming through, but there's also older people that are filming their first feature in their late 50s. So, you know, there's definitely a very significantly changing landscape, I think. And the only thing I was going to just mention or ask the question was, when we do have this talent going offshore, I wonder whether there's something the Australian industry and in government needs to look at to keep incentives so that people who are, you know, here and learning can stay in this market, given there's distribution options that can still put your work in an international level, but you don't have to go to those studios in Vancouver or New York or wherever else.
Yeah, great point. And I noticed in the chat somebody talked about this sort of exhausting time frame that you were talking about, Brian, you know, 13-hour days, 16-hour days. You'd see it all the time, Mark and Bilal. That's kind of part of the medal you have to have as well. Get the job done, right? Actually get in there, boots and all, with your skills, with your talent, and work really hard.
I feel like this is, at least in the game industry, it was something that was really pervasive. They call it crunch culture. I'm not sure if the same terminology is used, but there's been more and more of, I guess, a pushback lately, perhaps in line with the increasing challenges with hiring. All the senior workers and that are managing to find companies that are promising, all right, we're going to try to cut down on crunch culture and such, and kind of the standard is beginning to change over time. At least Wargaming, for example, where I work, they're an excellent example, because I've pretty much not done any crunch since I've been here, which I'm very grateful for. I mean, there's always, like, you know, a deadline is coming. It's almost time to release your game or your film or such, and there'll be a lot more intensity as you come to that. But I think what happened in the past was that could be like a full 6-month period, and people are just going hard for so long, and by the time you release that game, it's like, well, I'm all burnt out. So the picture's kind of starting to change there, which is I guess a good thing for everyone.
Yeah, thanks
Yes,
for that.
that's happening. That's kind of happening in filmmaking too. There was the past few days, a whole bunch of visual effects artists who came out saying that they wanted to stop working with Marvel because of the unrealistic expectations that studio was putting on VFX workers. They'll still do it though. Still do it.
Amazing. Yeah. Somebody in the chat room asked about networking and how to start networking, where to go. Well, that really depends on the different sector, obviously. Film, games, VFX, it's all different. But can each of you, maybe Brian and Bilal, talk about where sort of emerging gamers can go and do some networking, and then April and Mark?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a really good one in Sydney called Beer and Pixels. I think it's finally back to physical meetups after a long hiatus thanks to COVID. But just yesterday in Broadway, off-Broadway Hotel, there was a gathering there. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. Challenges of parenting life. But that's probably one of my top tips, I guess. Try to get involved in those kind of that's a good mix of like indie and industry. So I think Wargaming, for example, has a few people who regularly attend that.
And lots of fun, Bilal, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you'll get to see the kinds of things people are working on and give them feedback. And if you're working on projects yourself, you can bring them and ask people for feedback. So it's a very hands-on event, which is, yeah, I definitely recommend that.
And there's also IGDA, which is the Association for Game Developers. Yeah. Is it International Game Developers Association, right?
Yes. Or is the A association, or is it like the Australian
Australia.
branch of it? One of the two, but that's a very good point. There's a
Independent
Facebook group. Independent, right?
Game Development of Australia. Anyway, IGDA. Maybe Charlotte can pop that in the chat along with Beer and Pixels. April, the Screen Industry Guild, a great way for networking.
I think so. Any of the guilds or the Screen Producers Association, even if you don't feel like you're very super experienced yet, by putting yourself in the room, you're going to meet people that will tell you about a role or just, help you out. Genuinely, it's like the vibe in these places is not competitive, it's inclusive. So, and that membership's not even that expensive, really. I think it's 150 a year or something. So those kinds of things, and writers, directors, producing guilds, I think I'd recommend those too. To be honest, because I do work a lot in the regional area, as far as like metro networking events, Mark, are you aware of any that come up regularly? Or?
Well, there's the wonderful AEAF, which is the Animation Effects and Awards Festival. That's for animation and effects. It's a great networking event. It's held every year.
Yeah, I think that there's in this CGRAPH Sydney with the different local chapters, and I've met a lot of kind of students at those events where people are kind of like this. People are encouraged to come along and have a chat about some stuff that they've done. But there's a thing. A guy I know, Matthew, who runs an organisation called Masters of Motion, and that really is a passion project for him. But he runs regular.
Melbourne.
Yeah, it is Melbourne, but he runs like regular events in Sydney as well, and maybe Adelaide. I'm unsure, but he did a lot of online events where. That was quite good because it placed us all on a level playing field. It was kind of like this setup, but then we all get broken into like different rooms with all of the attendees, and we were all kind of able to kind of network and chat in that way as well. But generally these in-person events, just go and talk to people, find out what's going on, try and like as AAF, Masters of Motion, all the kind of the different groups and social channels where
social channels. I was going to say there's a really good Facebook group called Screen Vixens, and that's where a lot of work and opportunities are posted for normal longer contracts, but also shorter contracts, and anyone can join that. So just those kind of online as well.
And there's the Australian Production Design Guild that actually represents designers across games, VFX, film, costume design, production design, graphic design, etc. And they hold many events, and AIT are very associated with the Australian Production Design Guild. We do many joint events, master talk, presentations, etc. So actually, AIT is a great place for networking as well. Our game day, that's where we met Bilal. That's where we first met Brian Zhu. We have our game mastermind event, which Bilal took part in last week as part of this July speaker series. And Brian's taken part in game mastermind before as well. And we get industry come along, current students, potential students, plus our staff, and plus students from other schools, so other unis. So AIT is a great go-to place for that as well. Listen, I think we could open up maybe for some questions from the audience now. There've been lots and lots have been coming through. Donna, hey there. Thank you for being there. And hey, who would you like to kick it off with?
Awesome. So I might just scroll back up to the top. So look, very quiet tonight. So feel free to keep popping questions.
Really? Because I've seen lots of questions coming through. It must be when I glance down, there's a question.
Yeah. So first question was for Bilal, actually. So what software programs do you use now, and what programs do you find most useful?
Right. Well, as a game developer, I guess the big thing is the game engine that you use. So things like Unity or Unreal. I use both of those. So I use Unity for my indie dev work, and then a lot of my work at Wargaming was in the Unreal Engine. But at that scale, I also do some work in like custom game engines. So that's a bit blurry, I guess. Those would be where I spend most of my time. So I'd probably be at like tens of thousands of hours in them by this point, which is cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Another one for Brian. So what were some of the challenges you faced when working on Happy Feet 2, and how many people did you collaborate with for that project?
Okay. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, I was actually trying to answer that question previously. So there's around 150 people in my team on the animation team, 700 people in the whole film production team, from pre-production to post-production, including motion capture and all the technical stuff as well. The challenge I have is like I also mentioned it before, was the burnout, like 13 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I think that was a very rare case of that film production. I don't think it happens anywhere else. It was the one rare case that film is way behind schedule, as the director wasn't. So it wasn't well on one short period of time. So it wasn't like normal. Like if I'm to work on any film or gaming project, it's way less to that level now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for running through that. Another one here. So hello, how neurodivergent friendly is the animation industry?
I would say very. Having placed a number of AIT students in internships and then them landing roles in the animation industry, which were 2D, 3D, diversity is welcomed, encouraged, and supported. Obviously, there are different challenges for every person working in the animation industry, creative technologies, absolutely. But I feel the creative sector is probably one of the most inclusive. I hear this a lot from the industry practitioners I talk to, studio heads, etc. Guys, what do you think?
I would agree to a certain extent as well, but I think it also has to, I mean, with any sort of creative endeavor, you always do things as part of a team. So it's important for you to be able to take feedback and criticism on your individual work and also move on. But also, I think the industry's changed a lot over the past 2 years. I mean, a lot of people who are working for major studios have never set foot in the studio, and they don't need to, because everyone's working from home, depending on what their individual situation is. So I would never say that anything is limiting to you as you kind of move forward into your career.
Well, thanks for that, Mark. Brian, what do you think? Bilal?
Diversity-wise, I've seen like different group of people, right?
I think the person asked about neurodiversity. And whoever's in the room, can you expand on that a little more? I mean, neurodiverse, it covers a wide spectrum, and I wouldn't want to comment too succinctly there, and maybe that person would like to just hone in a bit more with that question. Donna?
Yeah, definitely, we can do that. Let's move on to another one, because I've got a few coming through now. So I'm hearing a lot about what is the opportunities about younger people in the industry. I'm in my early 30s started learning one of my passions, which is actually movie making. What are the chances of someone like me to succeed in the industry? And I do know that April sort of commented on this further down, but it might be nice to elaborate on this one.
Do you want me to elaborate? Yep. Yeah, I just think genuinely that early 30s is very young for our industry. I think partly because for my own career, I can use that as an example that I've been able to pivot at different points. So in my early 30s, I chose to go from journalism into production. And it was perfectly fine. And particularly even at that age, maybe there's like all ages, there's advantages. You know, you might have experienced another industry. Myself did hospitality, and I see hospitality and production similar. You can roll up your sleeves, you work with a team, you've got an end goal, and you get that done, and you try and have a bit of fun on the way. So genuinely, I would park any concern around an age limiting options with this industry. And I did flag that, you know, that literally meeting a lady last week that was filming her first featured film at the age of 59. I think that's indicative of where things are at. And writing, you know, writers are of all ages for lots of reasons. The depth of life experience you can put into a page are some examples that jump out to me. And again, I'll go back to, you know, going back to study at 42. Yeah, I'm the oldest in one of the groups, but it's okay, you know?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So good. Great answer. So awesome. So I thought this was a really good question. So what sorts of internal connections are there between different areas of film and game production in general, like between the animation sector and the actors or camera people, as an example, or even audio artists?
Maybe Mark, do you want to answer that one? Is that one for Mark?
I guess in general, we're normally employed as a vendor, so we get in touch with the production early on, or they get in touch with us, and we help them plan how they're going to shoot certain sequences to give us the best live action plates in order to complete the visual effects. And we would have an on-set VFX supervisor who would be there capturing all of the necessary data and making sure they do things right. But once the shoot is finished, our visual effects artists don't really have that much to do with the DOP or the different actors, because they've gone and they've done their job, and now it's over to us in post to fix everything. So it's not I mean, we're still in touch with the producers and the director who oversee most of the things that we do, but we're not really connected to the actual physical production of it.
Thanks, Mark. Maybe Bilal or Brian want to speak to that question as well.
Yeah, I guess in terms of kind of connections to other roles, so one of the good things, if you can manage to get to a big company, let's say like where I'm working at Wargaming, or there's Ubisoft, Sledgehammer in Melbourne, they have a lot of opportunity to kind of support horizontal movement between roles. So I see it a lot at Wargaming, where a colleague of mine will work a particular role, which they already have existing qualifications for, but maybe their goal is to do something else. And so if you're at a good company, they'll hopefully support you in that journey and help you kind of train for your new role, and you'd kind of have a foot in the door to apply for and switch kind of internally within the company. So that's, I've seen people go from like QA to art or game design, or people go from regular, say, programming to graphics programming. So they're kind of switching up within the company. But if you zoom out a bit, I think there's a lot of kind of relevance where the same skill can be used in a kind of different context. So, for example, all the work I'm doing could be useful for a company working in VR. Even if they're not making games, they could be making physical experiences or training things. A lot of the skills I've got could kind of be picked up and moved there. The same applies with like VFX and graphics. Games need VFX and graphics, but maybe you want to move to film. A lot of the skills you have, I'm sure some things will change. It's not exactly the same, but it's not like you're coming from scratch and you're new to this field. You'd be able to shift a lot of the things you've learned over.
Yeah, there are definitely those transferable skill sets across the sectors for sure. That person who asked the interesting question about neurodiversity has come back stating that they have ADHD. Well, you're not alone. So many people in the creative industries have a subtype of ADHD. I know so many people with that condition. It can actually be a plus because there are various subtypes with ADHD, hyperfocus being one of them. To be a 2D animator, to be a game programmer, a film editor, a VFX supervisor, you need hyperfocus. It can help, for example. Steven Spielberg is a very famous person with ADHD, and he likes to talk about it. And he's sat on many conventions about ADHD. So I don't think there's a problem there. Would anybody else like to jump in on that one?
I just made a note in the chat that personally, from the role of employer, I definitely wouldn't see that as a barrier to consider someone for a role. Obviously, a lot of other things come into the decision about who gets a role, but certainly that wouldn't be a barrier.
Absolutely.
I guess one thing I'll mention, you said in your elaboration that you find support from management would help immensely. And from my experience, the management and also the team that you'd work on would want to support you. Sometimes the tricky thing can be if we're just not aware of what support you'd need. So some people try to almost hide it. They don't, for whatever reason, they don't want to tell their manager or their team about that. And in that case, how would we be able to support it? So
great point, Bilal. Being transparent is really important, isn't it?
Yeah, because, you know, I don't think anyone where I work, like, there's all kinds of people where I work. It's a very supportive place, but if you don't know about something, then how can you possibly support it, I guess?
Absolutely. And I have to say, many of our students at AIT who I've worked with, they've claimed to me that, you know, they've got ADD, ADHD, various subtypes, and all of those students have gone on to be graduates and are doing great things in the industry. So I think Bilal's point of talking about it and either telling your teacher, your supervisor, your employee, etc., and then work on strategies for it.
Yeah, and it might be the case that, so it might be the case that you end up in a role where it's, like you say, tomorrow, a bit of a superpower.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If you're not in a role when you have to just concentrate on one singular thing, like if you're in a type of role where it's you have to be aware of and cognizant of so many different things all happening at the same time, and your ADHD might be a way of being able to kind of almost cope with so much stuff going on.
Absolutely, because Mark, many people with ADHD run on adrenaline a lot of the time, And as we know, in these creative industries, you need to run on adrenaline a lot. You're on deadlines a lot. You have a lot of work to get through. And ADHD people can be slightly risk takers as well. And I mean that in a good way. So I think try not to let anything like that be a barrier. Do some reading about it. Search for those famous industry people who do have it. You'll find so many do. Great question. Thank you for sharing that. It's wonderful. How are we going for time? We've got a few more minutes before Charlotte's going to take over. So 4 minutes. Any more questions from the audience?
I'll quickly get in there before we run out of time. So basically, I'll make them super quick. We've got a couple of questions here just in regards to what programs are recommended for learning for 2D animation. And I think the other question that really worked well was, how do you choose a medium to create and, I guess, propel your project across? Like, how do you choose the correct medium?
Brian, do you want to talk to that one about 2D?
2D animations wise, I've seen a lot of work done in Procreate recently. I work with one animator, 2D animator. Who I used to work with 5 years ago, and he now becomes an influencer, online content creator. Got like 5 million followers using Procreate to create animations. I think that was pretty good for him. When I started the industry, I see a lot of people using just After.VFX to do 2D animation. And for someone I work with making games, I saw quite of them using Toon Boom? Or, yeah. And Unity itself have animation, I think.
Sorry, what was that one? Something?
Toon Boom?
Toon Boom?
Yeah.
Cool. I haven't heard that one.
Yeah. So I think those could help.
Thanks for that, Brian. Next question, Donna.
I'm gonna mute that. So how do you know which medium to use to tell your story?
Depends on the story, right?
Yeah, it's debatable.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a
people
broad question, but
and it also depends what you have at your disposal. Like, we've all got pretty good camera. You can't see that because of this background, but we've all got pretty good cameras on our phones these days. If you're really intent in making something, you can make something with your phone and your video camera. But it really depends what you're trying to tell and what you're trying to do. If you're just trying to show some skills about how you can do a walk cycle in animation, then you can do that. But
Mark, when you think about what Animal Logic did with Peter Rabbit, they combined live action, 3D and 2D.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can dive into all of them in the one project.
You can indeed.
Simply, it just really depends.
Like develop the project depending what funding might be available as well, with film bodies and things like this.
Yeah.
Film Vic's
budget.
now Screen Vic. Yeah, budget. Film Vic's now Screen Vic because they are focusing on gaming entirely, or not entirely, obviously, but they're doing a major push. So that might also dictate if you can make it in a different medium than you might first thought, that at least the project will get up. So.
And look at
Thanks.
Saw some of the short films that are being made entirely in Unreal, and just been amazed at the kind of scope and the cinematic scope of what that engine can do on its own. And that generally can be like a pretty small team of people putting that stuff together. You don't need the expense of a live action shoot, and you can essentially base your story in packs that are readily available either for free or for a small kind of outlay.
And you can base yourself in your bedroom.
Exactly. I think even bigger projects are starting to use game engines as well. I know The Mandalorian was a big famous one where instead of using green screens, they had like a 360-degree Unreal Engine running at real time, so the actors could actually see the background behind them instead of a green screen. So it's getting really, really interesting, I guess, with the improvement of technology and game engines.
We live in interesting times. Guys, we've got to wind it up now. We could talk for so much longer. Look, thank you all so much for taking part tonight. April, Mark, Brian and Bilal, you've been amazing, imparting your knowledge, sharing your journeys, great tips and advice. We really, really appreciate it. I think the audience have loved it. Thank you so much. Can we all do a clap? And silent claps in the chat room, really appreciate it. Donna, Charlotte, thank you so much. Being in the chat room, being great facilitators. Oh, here are the people saying thank you, they're clapping. Brilliant stuff. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
And
thank you, Tamara, for bringing us all together.
Thank you. You took time out of your busy lives. You all are extremely busy, doing so much. So thank you. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys. Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara.
Nice to meet you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Now for Charlotte.
Hi everyone, and thank you so much to Tamara and bringing us all these wonderful industry partners to have a little chat to us. So I'm just going to share my screen, if you can see that there. So as Tamara said, I'm Charlotte. I'm one of the involvement advisors here at AIT in Sydney, and I'm going to be talking to you about our Bachelor of Interactive Media courses that we offer here at AIT. And Donna's going to be on the live chat, so I'll get you, Donna, just to say hello quickly. Great, thanks so much. So yeah, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, make sure you pop it in the chat and Donna will answer the best way she can and at the end of the presentation. Just a little note with the chat, guys, make sure you put everyone and not hosts and panelists, because chances are someone else might have the same question. Alrighty, so let's start. So AIT has been around for 20 years and has delivered progressive education that helps places graduates in successful roles in the creative, digital media and tech industries. What we do best is cultivate students' passions and their unique artistic style, whilst also providing regular opportunities to connect with the industry. We have 2 campuses, one in Sydney and one in Melbourne, and we offer courses in film, 2D animation, 3D design, film and video, game design, and games programming and mobile app development. So our students graduate with an accredited higher education bachelor or diploma, and this is equivalent to a university degree. So the courses that we offer, they balance foundational education and software-based training. So you'll learn the theory, but you'll also get your hands on the tools so that you know how to put your knowledge into practice. So these in-depth set of skills are relevant to the demands of the industry. So as you can see on the slide, you can master the industry standard software, such as Unreal Engine for game design or Premiere Pro for film. In the course, you'll also learn to work as a team and deliver project-based work. And then also, lastly, you'll get to focus on developing an amazing portfolio that you can use to promote yourself and to get jobs in the industry. So what makes us stand out from others is that we immerse you in real-world training, making you job ready through our industry preparation programs. So I'll talk about that in a little bit later on, but first I'm just going to talk about the courses that we offer in interactive media. Now, the first is a Bachelor of 2D Animation. So in your first year of doing this course, you're going to learn to draw, to refine and to develop animations. In the second year, you'll experiment with special effects and sounds to develop professional quality digital animations. Then in the third year, you're going to learn to manage your business, learn about promotion and branding, and produce high quality 2D animations. Next is our 3D animation course. In the first year, you'll learn to construct 3D forms and bring them to life through visual narratives. In the second year, you'll develop your 3D skills by editing, using effects and culture, and experiment with animation for games or storytelling. In the third year, much like the 2D animation course, you'll be looking at branding and promoting yourself, and then produce high quality 3D animations. Now on to our Bachelor of Film. In your first year, you're going to learn shooting, editing, storytelling, creating crafty plots and characters and engaging films. In the second year, you'll experiment with special effects, with sounds and cultural influences to develop professional quality moving imagery. Now, in your third year, it's going to be much like the other degrees that you'll actually get to manage your own business. But in this one, you'll be producing a quality film. Now, lastly, we have our Bachelor of Game Design. So in your first year, you're going to learn the strategy behind game mechanics and creating new worlds of adventure, so the characters and the environment. In the second year, you'll learn the art of console and multiplayer game design, and you'll learn to create assets for games like swords and weapons and experiment with sound effects. In the third year, again, you'll be learning about promotion and branding, but you'll be producing high quality games. Now, I mentioned the industry programs a bit earlier, so I'm going to delve a little bit further into these. So we've got 3 industry programs, which you'll do in your third year of studies. So in the first instance, we have our Forge. Now, this is a team project. It's worth 2 subjects, and it's an intensive subject where you collaborate in a production team and you work on your own short film. It could be a documentary, TV commercial, a game or animation, and you actually pitch that to a panel of judges from the industry, and they critique it and encourage you. Now, the other subject we have is our Launchpad subject. Now, it's not enough to know how to make a game or the skills. You actually need to have those soft skills, such as interview skills, presentation skills, personal branding, resumes as well. So these soft skills will really help you to land your dream job in the industry. The internship is what we're really proud about. In your last year, we actually placed you in a company to work for 120 hours. And this could be a 2D, 3D film or game company. And you get some valuable work experience, and you learn about soft skills even further, and you learn to network. So these meaningful contacts can actually land you a job in the industry. And we're very proud to have a 77% employment rate. So there are 3 opportunities to enrol with us. For those of you doing your Year 12 this year, we've got our February intake. For those who are free as a bird, then we've got our September intake on the 19th coming up really soon. And then we've got May as well. We do have a scholarship available for each intake, both for Sydney and Melbourne. If you'd like to find out more information, I might get Donna to pop that in the chat as well. It's a good opportunity. Basically, we have a brief that's on our website. You approach it and respond to it the best way you can. You actually get 50% off the first trimester and 50% off the final trimester of your studies. So it's well worth applying. Also, all our bachelor courses are government funded, so you can apply for what's called fee help. It means you don't have to worry about the finances before, you just pay for the course once you finish studying with us. So if you want to find out more, guys, we have a beautiful open day coming up on August the 13th. So this means that you'll be able to come in, have a campus tour, meet our educators, do a small workshop in the chosen field, and get a sense of what it's like to study with us. So August 13th, it's on a Saturday, and we'll pop the link in the chat. Now, to apply, it's really easy. The way to do it is on our online. So there's the link over here. International students, please email us. And the entry requirements for ART is your Year 12 HSC. No ATAR is required, and we'll just need some photo ID. So it's really easy to apply directly through us. And if you'd like any more information, if you need some suggestions on how to enroll or what to do next, please reach out to us. We've got Daniel from Melbourne, Donna, as you met, and she's in the chat there. She's from our Melbourne office. Myself, Charlotte, I'm from Sydney, and we've got Tice from our international team. So I hope you learned a lot about our courses, and I'll invite Donna back on if there were any questions. don't hesitate to keep giving those questions in the chat there, okay?
Thank you, Charlotte. That was really good. We actually don't have any questions. I'm just going to do a bit of a shout out. We'll just wait a little bit. We'll see if we've got any questions, but we will elaborate with the, oh, here we go. Straight in there. Is the internships local? So, yeah, I'll let you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we do have all our internships are local. So for our domestic students, or domestically that is, so both in Sydney and Melbourne, we've actually got 70 industry partners across all the fields. So in 2D, 3D game and film. So, yeah, we can definitely like team you up with whoever we think is suitable for you according to your skills, according to what you can do. Yeah, so did you want to elaborate on that, Donna?
Yeah, and I think the other thing to know is generally for the internship, it's something that's inbuilt as an elective option in your third year. So there will be prerequisites, like obviously you're really, putting in your best effort into the course and your attendance is good. And we actually have a full partnership team that go and work relationships with many different companies across Melbourne and Sydney. As you've heard, we've been around a very, very long time, so very connected. So it's a huge benefit for our students. And we're really sort of about wanting to see you succeed for the future. It's one thing to go and get a bachelor on a piece of paper, but it's another thing to have all the skills to make it in the industry. And that's very much what we're about. Great question here. Do you need BCE or is VCAL okay? And I think I might elaborate on the Victorian side of things, and I'll let Charlotte go into the Sydney. So basically for entry into the course, all we require is just a year 12 completion. We don't require an ATAR or a portfolio. So VCAL definitely ticks that box. The other thing I would say is you've got a couple of ways to enrol in Victoria specifically. You can definitely, if you're in year 12 at the moment, you're probably hearing that big word VTAC a lot, quite a bit. So basically you can definitely go through the VTAC portal. If you've paid for a VTAC account, you will need to enrol through the full VTAC process. If you really see yourself at just studying at AIT and you're not too worried about other institutes, then I highly recommend, if you haven't sorted a VTAC account and haven't paid for a VTAC account, you can enrol directly right now for next year. We would love to have you. Would you like to elaborate on Sydney?
Well, as Donna mentioned, we don't have an ATAR requirement. All you need is a year 12 HSC. You can go through UAC, University Admissions, but yeah, most of our entry requirements are just direct entry. So just through our website is the easiest way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. So Chris, we've got, with the 2D animation course, is there any way to accelerate the first part of the course, essentially skip or speed through the learning to draw and refine part of the course that was mentioned? So I'm assuming, Chris, I probably want some elaboration on that. Do you mean like working through the first year of the course quicker, or do you mean skipping through the actual subject quicker? Because what I would say is generally for our full-time study, how that would essentially look is we offer 3 trimesters a year, and generally February trimester you would take on 3 subjects, May trimester 3 subjects, and then the final one for the year, September, would be 2. But you do have the ability to take on more or less subjects as an Australian citizen. So if you feel you would like to go with like a part-time option, you can definitely cut your subjects back to 2 or 1 subject in that trimester. The other option is you could be really keen and you could go 4 subjects in a trimester. And say if you did that right through for, say, full 2 years, you would smash out that bachelor in 2 years. So it will get you into the industry faster for sure. But obviously in saying that, it's going to be a lot higher level of commitment, a lot more workload. But you've got flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to add on that, so yeah, the 3 years is called the standard method or the standard approach, and then 2 years is accelerated. So that obviously means you can do a bit faster. Yeah.
Awesome. Any other questions out there? That's okay, Chris. I think we've answered everyone's questions.
Okay, brilliant.
So just let's friendly reminder as well. We would love to have you all for open day. It's going to be Saturday, the 13th of August from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. at both our Melbourne campus, which is directly across from Southern Cross Station. Very, very central, right on Spencer Street there. And we also have the Ultimo campus, which I believe is a 10-minute or so walk from Central Station.
Yep, yeah. That's right. 10 to 12 minutes down the hill. Yeah. And yeah, there's parking as well at Broadway Shopping Centre. So it's yeah, really local as well. Yeah,
so
we'd love to have you.
To see you. Exactly. Definitely register. We'd love to meet you. It's a great opportunity to meet some of our students and see some of their work, see our facility, see our cool green screen room, meet the teachers, and really just ask everything you need to ask, because it is a lot when you're looking for somewhere to study, and we're more than happy to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that HSC, the Year 12 HSC trials are just around the corner. I know you'll be busy studying, so we're happy to take you on a personalised campus tour anytime that you wish. We can organise a time, so just contact us, me and Donna, anytime, and we'll sort that out.
Pleasure. Any last questions before we finish up for the night? Give it a little bit. Doesn't look like it.
All right. Well, it was lovely to have you. Thanks for your attention, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the industry speakers. That was amazing, wasn't it? And hope you learned something about our courses. And we hope to see you all at Open Day.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.